What's up, everyone? This is Thomas Edwards, coach at thomasedwardsjr.com and founder of the Professional Wingman. Welcome to the Weekly Intention, where I teach people how to live a better life right now using practical lessons and strategies from personal stories. Today, it's not just me. I actually have an amazing guest here with me who is willing to share his story, and someone that I've known for quite some time. I think actually almost a decade now when I look back, which is incredible. But it's great to have you here and use this as a great excuse to catch up with you. This individual is Nando Rodriguez, who is a breakthrough coach in New York City, transforming celebrities, influencers, and creators' lives through individual and group coaching sessions, causing breakthroughs by smashing limited beliefs. He's trained to lead people with a new access of performance using a new technology based on neuro-linguistic programming, otherwise known as NLP. This methodology is designed to empower people's natural ability of self-discovery to consistently produce breakthrough results. And if you really want to know it in just one line, he helps his clients transform their mindset, their actions, and their lives. It's with great privilege and honor to have you on here, buddy. Good to see you.
Good. It's so amazing to see you. I'm so happy that you have a podcast that we can catch up on and just like really dig in. Thank you so much.
Tell me where you're at right now, and when you look back on where you are now in comparison to where you were. I mean, we even talked about before we started going live about 6 months ago, right? Like, who was that person, and what was something that happened that triggered you to go on this path that you're currently on?
Oh yeah, that's such a juicy question, man. So I would say like what the event that really got me on a path to transformation was I was in corporate America and working in HR, and I was creating content, blogs, graphics, videos, all these things to get people to come and work for the company that I was working for. And just 2 years ago, my boss took me into one of the conference rooms and was just like, hey, we're letting you go. And, I was like, what? Like, wait, that's not in the, like, I back from vacation, like, you don't do this to someone, right?
Yeah. And
because I am a recovering drama queen, like, he immediately called my husband up and was just like, get a cardboard box, we're gonna be homeless in a week, and the world was over and all that. And because I really didn't know like this could happen, I wasn't prepared for being let go, no longer having a job and income, things like that. And although we had a savings, it was like, I don't want to use my savings for that. Like, that's not what it's for, right? Like, so
how do you really prepare for something that you kind of have to assume that is going to be there? I'm sure for a lot of people who are listening, like, how do you prepare for that moment when you lose your job? Like you said, like, having savings is great. That's one good safety net. But when what you do is such a huge part of how you live your life and you lose that, what happens? Like,
So that actually was what sent me into this tailspin of depression, panic attacks, anxiety. And it was an 8-month journey from that moment to 8 months later. I was literally at a Target. I was at a Target and I was like, oh, let me go get some vitamins. And I'm staring at the vitamin aisles and I see stuff like, take this for anxiety, take this gummy bear to sleep better, and take this. And I was just looking at all that and I was like, holy crap, like, it's been over 6 months since I've been taking any of those things. Because when I first got let go, I was on all of it.
Yeah.
I was on all of it because I couldn't go to sleep, and then I couldn't wake up, then I couldn't be inside of my own day because of the stories I had created. Being let go really had me collect evidence of how, like, my work wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough. I was trapped inside of this story of, had I really been valuable to the company, they would have kept me. So that's what I was living into. As soon as they let me go, that was like right here in front. And you just don't get there, right, from one
Yeah.
time. I had been carrying this message along with me from the past. You
Mm.
know, I'm
Yeah.
adopted. I'm adopted. So someone didn't want me at the beginning of my birth. You're not good enough. Something's wrong with you. So I've been dragging that along. So me getting fired was just more evidence of how like there's something wrong and broken with me.
So this is a really interesting point because, my last episode talks about depression and how it can be triggered from an external circumstance or experience that tells you that you're not good enough, whether it was your parents or in your case, right, you were adopted, right? And so your story was, I wasn't loved enough, or I wasn't enough for my actual parents, so they had to give me up, right? And
Yep.
so, and then something like that you may not think is a big deal, but it stays with you, as you said, like it carries with you. And then you have an experience like losing your job, boom, all of a sudden that becomes part of the trauma of that feeling of not being enough, and that contributes to anxiety, contributes to depression. And so sometimes people assume that depression is just an emotional state that we just fall into. But oftentimes there are certain episodes or certain things that we do that can actually trigger that emotional state, whether we are aware of it or not. And so how did you bring the link together, from that feeling of not being enough, tying it back to, you being adopted, and then how it was connected?
Yeah. So what happened was I sought out coaching,
Mm.
right? So I went and I got a coach, and I was started doing all this transformational work, and I didn't know what transformational work meant, right? I was just getting a coach. That's it. And
Well,
then
so so I think this is important because, not many people are just so willing to say or identify that they need to invest in mentorship or coaching. Obviously we're both coaches. And so in some parts we understand what that is, but for those who haven't looked in that, what would you say is the big reason, or either big reason to get a coach, and then also some of the biggest benefits around getting someone to mentor you?
yeah. So when in the first month of being let go, what I did know for sure was I didn't want to go back to doing the same thing I was doing before.
Okay.
Because had I been honest with myself, my goals for New Year's, I got let go in April
Mm-hmm.
of 2016, 2016. And so that New Year's, I was writing my goals out, and it was like, no longer work here, right? And it was just like going back to blogging and going back to creating videos, because that's how you and I met each other,
Yeah.
right? That's what I was doing.
Yep.
And then somewhere along the line in that 10 years, it's like I got into corporate America, and then that became my reality.
Yeah.
And now that it had been yanked out, I was like, no, but this is what I love. And it's like, no, be honest with yourself. You had just written goals a few months ago saying that's not what you love. That's not what you want to go back to. So it's like, holy crap, I was stuck in this thing of like, and if you think about it, that's what happens like in a breakup, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're miserable in a relationship. And then when the other person decides to break up before you do, you're like, no, you were the best thing ever. But if we're really honest with ourselves, we had not been inside of joy and happiness for a while. And so when actually it was my job breaking up with me that led to this whole new journey. Let me just tell you, and when you're healed, when you're so thankful and you're so grateful for the breakup, right?
Yes.
Like right now, I have nothing but like amazing things to say about that company, about my ex-boss, about the people I worked with, because it just led me on this new path of transformation. So your question was, what got me to there? I knew I didn't want to go back to doing that because I remembered my goals in the beginning of the year. I just didn't know what was the next step for me. So I went looking. I was like on Google, like, how do I know? And then coaching kept coming up, and the word transformation kept coming up. So that's what got me there.
Yeah, and transformation is such a
big word, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is it?
Yeah, what is transformation, right? And like sometimes people see it as this big thing, as if like you're promising the world. And the reality is like the world can be given to you through transformation, but it really depends on the person who wants to go through transformation. So in your perspective, what is transformation to you, and what have you experienced as your own transformation since the professional breakup?
I love that. I love that question. So for me, plain and simple, it's removing the blinders and like really seeing the world newly and seeing myself newly, because I had created a version of me that was just, I'd wake up, have breakfast, go to work, come back, have dinner, go to bed, and then repeat.
Yeah.
So there was no excitement, there was no joy, there was no like I had control of what I was doing, I was creating anything, I was living into a purpose. All of that was missing.
Yeah.
And so when I
Purpose
started
is huge. So
yeah, purpose.
yeah, that purpose was
Purpose.
missing, right? You were kind of just this cog on the wheel, living in your routines. Life was living you, right?
Man,
Not the other way around.
exactly. Life was occurring to me versus me creating my life, what I wanted to do. And so in that, my finances were absolutely amazing. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. My finances were like, what? Vacations, everything. But because of the routine, it was like the marriage was in a rut. The relationship was just stagnant. Again, there was no true purpose for me
Yeah.
waking up in the morning. It was just like, oh, let me just go back to this. So transformation was actually able to get me to see that I was living a life that I didn't necessarily create by choice. It was like, yeah, I made decisions. I ended up living that life.
Yeah.
And with actually discovering, oh, I could actually create what it is that I want to live on a daily basis. That to me was transformation, right? Like it took the blinders off. And that's what I promised as a result in my coaching, right? With my clients. It's like you will now have the ability, you will have the access to take the blinders off and create a life that you say, this is what I'm going to do and this is what I'm going to get or create.
Yeah. And I think that's really, really huge. I mean, transformation ultimately, like you said, is like seeing the blinders and pulling the blinders and seeing what you truly can create for yourself. I think that's the big thing. And so when you take that lesson of, breaking up with, being broken up with, right, by your job firing you and letting you go just unexpectedly, what was the big lesson that you had, that looking back on, that you learned from that moment?
I think one of them was I am not what I do, right? So I had if I were to take a look back when I was like super depressed, hopeless, a lot of anxiety, it was because I no longer had a thing that I was. I was no longer the head of employer branding for X company. I was not that title. And when you look at it, when you meet people in networking events or for the first time, what's one of the first questions you ask? It's like, what do you do? And they give you a title.
Yep.
So what do you do? Oh, I'm the head of da-da-da. I'm the VP of da-da. And it's just such a way that Americans just like collapse who you are with what you do. And so my biggest thing was uncollapsing that. This is who I am versus this is what I do.
Yeah.
Because even now, like, I'm a coach, but that's not all to me, right? And I'm able to see the big pie now, the big wheel of it's all these slices. And the way I was living life, that just wasn't it. So there was no other way for me to be except depressed, hopeless, because they had taken my identity away. So the biggest thing I learned was I am not that thing that I thought I was.
Yeah, and identity plays such a huge role in this, because once you link your identity to what you do and you lose it, right? You lose your identity. This is very similar in relationships. If you put all of yourself into your relationship, into that other person, and then they decide to leave you, you lose your identity too. That happened to me a long time ago, before I met Laurie, putting myself into someone else so much that when she left, I didn't have anything that resembled myself. I was just a shell, essentially.
Yeah.
And so often, I think that's a great lesson. Your identity is not what you do. You know, what you do really can, I mean, when you think about how many hours in a week, what's it, 168? And so 160 hours in a week, and let's say you work at most, let's say 75 hours, you know, let's just say, you know, you're hustling, right? 75 hours. And I think for most people, 40 hours is normal times, right? So, but let's say you are an entrepreneur or you're a CEO, or you have some very high level position that requires a lot of time, or that you choose to invest a lot of time in. Even at 75 hours in a given week, that leaves you at 90 hours for the rest of that week. So by numbers perspective, your identity is more associated by what you're doing outside of work than what you're doing in work, because there's a majority of that time is dedicated to that. But like you said, Western culture changes that and makes you think that what you do for work is who you are. And that's a big lesson. So how does that apply now to your current life in terms of how things look and what you're most proud of?
Yeah. So now it's so interesting because I just before I jumped onto this call with you, I was on a client coaching call, and we were discussing how she is now showing up differently in her own life, right? Since she started coaching with me. And what's occurring is actually, you know, the transformation is taking place with each coaching session, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people have this idea that transformation is like the Cinderella thing where, you know, you wave a wand and you go from the rags and the magic spins and now you're like this ball gown, like you're unrecognizable, right?
Yeah.
But what she's getting is it's these little tweaks that she's doing, that she's being, that's causing all this transformation. Now, like friends that weren't talking to her, they're calling her to check up on her. Now, like there's certain relationships in her family that are like way better now because she's being more flexible, more open to not, you know, they're bad mouthing me or they're not into, you know, my career or whatever. No, that's not what's happening. So I say all of this to say what my clients get, I'm already living.
Yeah.
Right. So I get to choose how I show up in my own life. And I think that's the biggest gift as a coach, because listen, I can't be one of these coaches that says, oh, client, you do X, and then behind the scenes, I'm doing something totally different.
Yeah, 100%.
If I'm talking to the client, if the lesson of the day is about integrity, I have to look at where I am out of integrity. Oh, I'm not going to the gym. Oh, I'm not eating my vegetables. Oh, I'm not drinking all my water, right?
Yeah.
And so what I love about being a coach is it keeps me in the conversation for transformation.
Yes.
That's the thing. Like it just keeps me in that conversation. And that's what I love the most. And so it guides me into my purpose of helping others create transformation, but then it allows me to keep my transformation. Because right here, I don't know about you, but like you don't wake up transformed. You have to feed the meter every morning, right?
Yeah.
You start over again. You're at zero, and then you got to like feed the meter. That's what I tell my clients. So it's like I've been doing this for over 2 years now. I still have to like get myself to the gym. It's not like yay, right? Or I gotta eat my veggies or whatever. A muffin doesn't tempt me. I still gotta, you know, do the work. But because this is what I do for a living, it keeps me in the conversation.
Totally. And listen, you know, for those who are watching or listening, you know, you don't necessarily have to be a coach, right? To feel like feel that type of accountability. You can place that upon yourself. And I think that what was being said here, which I think is perfect, is doing the work, right? You wake up, you start from zero. Everything that you do is an investment in yourself, from drinking a glass of water to waking up early, to working out, to eating that healthy breakfast, to have greens, to meditate, to journal. I mean, there's so many things you can do to feed yourself, and you do it on a regular basis. Transformation is not overnight, but it can happen. It can happen quickly depending on how often and how much you're investing in yourself each and every day. And I think that's beautiful.
And you create mastery, right? But that doesn't mean that a day won't, you know, you won't wake up and you're just like, oh, you're in a blah and a man mood, right? Because just because you've created mastery, it's still the idea of you got to work on it. You got to go to the gym. Okay, now I look amazing. I'm going to stop going to the gym. Okay, well then eventually in a couple of days, a couple of months, you're not going to look amazing. And it's
Yeah.
going to come back up to you. So it's something that you just keep doing. And you're right. Like, absolutely. You don't have to be a coach to have that level of accountability, but it's like getting to the point of creating that accountability. Because Thomas, right? Like, where else in your client's life do they have that level of accountability? You don't. It's like when you're little, your mom or your parents is like, get up, go to school. Did you do your homework? Teachers, like there's people in place that keep you accountable for certain things. And then eventually as you adult, no one keeps you accountable.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of people get lost, right? They feel like as they're being, when they're growing up, that accountability was more nagging and like getting on them. But what was really happening is they were being instilled these routines and these structures to learn self-accountability so they can live that life and hopefully lead by example, lead others to live that kind of life as well. But when you try to get to that adulting phase and you're on your own, immediately the structure and the accountability is gone because
it's out
when there, right? And so, whether you find a way to do it on your own, which would be amazing if you're able to do it on your own. I personally don't recommend it just because it takes a long time. It's a lot more trial and error, and there's a lot of cost when it comes to that: energy, resources, time, education. And so I always recommend, if you want the highest level of accountability, going out and investing in a mentor and a coach is really the most impactful and the most bang for your buck when it comes to investing in yourself as a true asset, to grow and to learn the things, live the life, and lead by example. So that being said, I mean, I know that you as a coach, like you have tons of different types of people that you work with, but you have something that you've recently created, right?
Oh yeah, you're talking about my online course? Yeah. So, So correct. So I just launched an online course for entrepreneurs who are getting stuck or feel like there's so many obstacles in their way. And it's not your average entrepreneur course. It's not about marketing, spreadsheets, and profit and loss Excel sheets. It's more about like who you're being. You get to redefine and reconstruct what it means to be an entrepreneur and your methods, like in your mind, right? Because all of this is like creating. So who do you say entrepreneur is? What do you say are the things you are out there to create? And so this course, it's 6 modules, and it just clears the path, and it gets you, like I said, it removes the blinders, and it allows you to be like, oh, I get to do it my way, right? With structures and strategies that have been working for myself and for other people. So yeah, that's I just created that. It just launched 3 weeks ago. It launched 3 weeks ago, and it's called Entrepreneur AF. And so it's for a certain type of entrepreneur, right? Totally. Yeah.
Sweet, man. Well, listen, I would love people to check it out. We'll create some link love for you so people can do that. I think entrepreneurs are definitely, that demographic within entrepreneurs, they need a lot of support, and a lot of the entrepreneurs, I mean, I can speak for myself, have been driven by trying to go about things by themselves, doing as much as they can by themselves with as little support as possible. And that kind of stress, I mean, very few people are able to take on and do it successfully. I'm not saying it's impossible, but there's definitely ways you can go about doing the exact same thing with levels of support that can help you get there faster, stronger, and more impactful. And so definitely, if you're listening or watching this, check out his course and see if that's something that fits and is in alignment with what you're looking to do. So thanks for being on here, brother. I really appreciate it. It's great to catch up with you. Where can people find you to learn more about you and your life and all the great things you have going on?
Yeah, so the main hub would be nandoism.com, and everything is housed there. So just go to the website, everything from coaching to the course to blogs and videos, it's all on there. And yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for being so generous and allowing me to come on and be on your podcast, be the first person that you interview. That's really an honor for me because, man, like I've seen you in what you're doing and what you've done. And it's just like so awesome to be like in your stratosphere, just to be like, oh, he's going to allow me to go on his podcast? That's really awesome. So like, I'm really grateful. I'm really honored. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
man. Yeah, I'm just grateful that we were able to we get to capture, record, and share this moment together. You know, and this is one of the reasons I created this, to create these moments and to
Yeah.
hopefully have people be in our stratosphere and see this moment and hopefully learn something that they can now apply to their
Yeah.
life. So yeah, thanks again for being on here. And guys, you know, if I think it's so important, just grab the support that you need, whether it's from Nando, whether it's from me. If it's from me, you can go to thomasedwardsjr.com/talk, get all the information you need on how to get out of your current condition and into a better life with intention. And I really hope you enjoyed this video and this interview, because I want to help each of you live a better life full of connection, experiences, value, and purpose. So you can do it much faster than you think or even taught to believe. So if you like this video, give me some love, thumbs up, subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear this message, because they too can live a better life with the right intention. That's all we got, guys. This is Thomas saying, keep it simple, be amazing, and live intentionally.